Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, looks like we have quite a few people joining us this morning. So first of all, as always, we want to thank our sponsors who have made it possible for us to continue to do this. So Care First Arizona, thank you. Satellite Broadcasting Association, Valley of the Sun United Way, and Khajiit. And we're certainly looking for other sponsors. So if you want to have your logo on here, we'd certainly be glad to have your money. So we'll look forward to that. And okay, let's working here. Let me do that. Okay, so just a reminder that if you want to see who's participating in the task force, that we do have a participant list. And as always, it's not everybody. Those who have filled out the Google form are included on that list. There's somewhere about, I believe, 80 some odd people who are on that list. But if you're not on the list, please take 5 minutes to fill out the Google form and make sure you're included on that list. So next meetings are the 20th and the 27th, and then we'll go into October. So again, mark your calendars. Hopefully you've got calendar announcements, and encourage you to do that. Just a reminder that we have started our kibitzing with colleagues, which is actually an extension of this meeting. For those people who would like to just stay online and share information, ask for help, or just chat, that we will keep the meeting open for a while, as long as people want to talk. So again, there's no agenda, there's no presentations. It's just strictly an informal sharing opportunity. So we encourage you to come kibitz with us. And again, you can download the task force report from last week. And again, thanks to Henry and Oris. I know Horace is back from vacation, I believe. Hope you had a good vacation, Horace. You can download the last month's report. The presentation from Alluvian is also available for download. And the video of last week's meeting is also available. So I encourage you to do that. Next is the events and updates page. So I started working on a new update today, but try to identify funding sources, events that are taking place, webinars that are coming up, and encourage you to check it out on a regular basis. I think you'll find, I'm trying not to send too many emails, and so I'm trying to include as much as possible on that page. So if you want to know about the latest webinars, contacts, funding resources, and so forth, I encourage you to check out that page. Okay, let's see what else we got here. So we have I think we have a couple of new people who have joined us. And so anybody who's new to our meeting today that would like to introduce themselves, Maddie, I think this is your first meeting with us.
Okay,
sure. I'm Maddie Bynes. I'm the director of the Arizona Association of Area Agencies. I'm also director of Public Policy and Special Projects for Pima Council on Aging in Tucson, Arizona.
Great. And so we have a number of folks, and you'll hear about that in a little bit, who are now interested in trying to focus on seniors. As most of you know, that our focus has been primarily on communities and students. And but there's been a lot of interest recently about focusing on seniors. So there's some folks who have been meeting to talk about that, and we'll give you an update on that in just a couple of minutes. Let's see. So while we're talking about that, anybody else that's new to us today? Going once, going twice. Okay, so let's just jump into it. So Cindy, while we're talking about seniors, do you want to talk briefly about some meetings that have been taking place regarding senior digital inclusion?
Yes, good morning, Cindy Hogan. Sure, we got a group of people together that seemed to have, I got a call from the AARP in Arizona, and they were interested in seeing what they could be doing in the state for digital inclusion of seniors. And so we got a group together, met, had a really good conversation, and also learned that United Way of Tucson and Southern Arizona also had an effort going on along those lines. And so as we concluded our conversation, we decided we would join in with that group. And so the group, obviously by doing that, the group got bigger, and we think that we have something to add to their conversation, and of course a lot to learn from them as well. And Elizabeth Cozy with United Way is working on getting us the next meeting date so that we can keep moving forward.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Cindy? Okay, so Robert, I saw you were online. I don't know, Amanda, if you're here, you want to give a quick update on the discussions we've been having, the planning regarding a possible EDA grant for Chicanos Public Housing?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So I'm Robert Alvarado, Vice President of our IMTS department here at CPLC. So we've been meeting with a group of partners to look at the possibility of applying for the EDA grant. We've been right now just kind of figuring out what is that focus going to be, and what are we going to concentrate on. And so we were looking at telemedicine as one of the possibilities that we were looking at. And so we are having 2 meetings this week to really get that focus down and start writing up. We're going to apply for both parts of the grant.
Great, thanks, Robert. Any questions for Robert? So right now, that's a fairly small group while we're trying to get focused, and then we'll probably be inviting more partners to the table. So anyway, we'll keep you informed, and at some point, we'll probably invite all of you to get engaged with us. I gotta say, if you folks aren't familiar with Chicanos, it's a pretty amazing organization. You're in what, 5 states, Robert, 6 states?
Yes, we're in 5 states. So California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Yeah, so we provide about 61 different lines of businesses. And we have a for-profit and nonprofit side.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal. So every time I mention that we're working with you, people go, oh man, they're a great organization. So you've got a good reputation.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah. So next thing is a database of task force meeting presentations. Henry, I know you're waiting for some stuff from me, but you want to just talk about that quickly?
Okay, yes, I prepared a database of all the presentations that have been given to the task force since it started operating in March 2020. So about 18 months. We've had presentations at many of the meetings, and they're, from technology, telecommunications type of companies, government organizations, and nonprofit organizations talking about what they're doing in broadband or digital access. And so I thought it'd be worthwhile to have a database that kept track of all those valuable presentations that have been made. And the database is a spreadsheet that shows the date of the meeting, the topic discussed, a brief description of the topic, and the presenters. And I sent that to Steve, and he's going to convert that to a Google Sheet and put it on the website with links to the task force report where that was discussed, and the presentation or recording of the meeting as well. So hopefully that'll be useful to you in terms of keeping track of what presentations were made and going back and looking at them if you're interested in reviewing that.
That was a great suggestion, Henry. I'm looking at a possible format for that, so I haven't forgotten you. Just wanted you to know that.
Okay.
So telehealth and libraries, Mala, maybe you want to do this. I think you're online. Maybe you want to do this into your report, but I know you and Janet have had some conversations about telehealth and libraries. I don't know if you want to talk about that now.
I'll
Janet,
talk
if
about
you're
it during.
online.
Yes, I am online. Would you prefer that I talk about it now?
No, why
or-
don't you do it now? Why don't you do it now? We're kind of talking about some of the initiatives that are underway here.
Okay, okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. I couldn't for a little bit log in from my computer. I had to log in on my phone and while my computer was trying to get me to Zoom. So anyway, now I'm on. We've been, Janet and I, as well as the NAU team, telehealth team, have been meeting over the last month or month and a half and working out what libraries could do with in the telemedicine area. It started out with a Shelby webinar that Craig Settles was the presenter, and he's the guru of telemedicine in libraries. And I then contacted several of the people that he gave as examples: Delaware, Indiana libraries, Texas, Pottsboro Library, and several others, and worked a small grant for the state library itself to do. The grant is still being reviewed, and there are positive signs that it is going to get approved, but the grant actually is to help us do telemedicine through libraries in the form of having either nurses and having nurses as well as student nurses for sustainability to come in and help people who are in need of telehealth care. It's also going to give them some kind of kit that we have put together so that this can be taken by the nurse from library to library if they're going, on a mobile van or something like that, or they can pitch a tent outside the library and use the library's Wi-Fi to transmit information, vitals, and other information that are needed by the doctor of the patient, especially those who are in post-operative care or those who need close monitoring. So we're still working on the details of it, and it should get some kind of blessing soon, because the grant is supposed to start from October to next September. So let's wait and see. It is an LSTA grant, that is LSTA's Library Services Technology Act grant. The funding comes from the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Hi, Mala, it's Sharika.
Hi,
Just
Sharika.
Hi, just a quick thought, and I'm not sure. I know when I worked at the fire department, to transmit medical data over the internet, it had to be a certain type of security level. So that's something that you guys may encounter.
Yes, you are right. You are right. And we are taking care of that. There is a particular app that can be used for safely transmitting this information. And that is the most expensive part of the
Yep.
grant, because yeah, getting that license, we are aware, because we are in discussion with the NAU telehealth team, which has a couple of doctors, couple of Native American nurses who are serving in that area. We wanted it to be a focus on Indian community, but we're still getting there. We're working our way towards it. We had a presentation at the telehealth hour. Janet and I did a presentation on the 9th, and we had several people from the IHS, the Indian Health Services, attend, and they were very enthusiastic about it. Yes, we are very aware of the HIPAA requirements, as well as requirements to transmit electronically, safely to the patient portal. So it would go directly from the patient to the patient's portal, which the doctors can access. We're also working on navigators to help people through this while they're in the library. So the navigators becomes a very important part of this program, so that we can do it safely, securely, and following all the rules that telemedicine requires.
Okay, thanks, Mala. Any questions for Mala before we move on? Okay, next up, Cindy, you're up again. Nicole, I don't know if you're online. But do you want to talk about it? I forget what you're calling it,
Sure.
Cindy, so I need to update it. But Connect Arizona is working on a digital inclusion directory. So you're on, Cindy.
Great, great. As many of you are aware, the Arizona State Library, in response to the pandemic, created a website called Connect Arizona to provide digital inclusion resources to the state, including a map of free public Wi-Fi locations and a tech hotline. And the website continues to evolve. I will put the URL in the chat so you can have a look. The tech hotline received funding for a full team of digital navigators who are ongoing right now. Their library staff who answer questions and provide information to the public weekdays from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's even, they even contracted with a navigator who speaks the Navajo language, which is really exciting. I'm working with the State Library on their next effort, which is to create a digital inclusion directory. This is a listing of all the organizations across Arizona providing services to bridge the digital divide. And these include computer furbishers, providers of digital resources for parents of school children, live or online tutoring and tech support, public access computer locations such as libraries and city recreation centers. And if your organization is interested in being part of this directory, I'll put my email in the chat and you can contact me. I also believe Steve will be sending out an email to all AZBSM members for that same reason. We think it will be useful to collect all the available resources in Arizona into one place so we can begin dialogues between organizations and share out the ideas and the solutions that we're kind of coming up with individually as organizations. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Cindy? So that's a really exciting, I got to tell you, in the last couple of months, there have been a number of new organizations who are participating in the task force. And of course, there's many others out there who are not. But one of the things Cindy and I talked about is how do we perhaps do an online meeting or some kind of event and begin to develop an actual network of digital inclusion organizations. just within the task force, as I said, we probably have, I don't know, 40, 50 organizations. And again, that's certainly not the universe, but is certainly a good representation of key digital inclusion organizations. And one of the things that I find all the time and why it's exciting to see this directory, when I talk to folks who are working on projects in communities, that they don't know about what resources and organizations are out there. And in many cases, they want to start their own because they didn't know that somebody was already out there that they could tap into. So I'm very excited to see this. Cindy and Nicole and the State Library, you guys, as always, are pretty awesome. So if there's no questions, let's get into our usual updates. Jeff, you want to kick it off, please? Jeff, are you still there?
Yeah, I am. I'll be very brief. We've pushed the date of our grant back to November 1st for a lot of reasons. We're going through the process of meeting with the various interest groups just to let everyone know, the structure and what we're trying to do. But the date has been pushed back. I will be traveling this week to Northern Arizona. So if you need to get a hold of me, please do be patient. Some of the areas we're going to are pretty remote and hopefully knock on wood, the cell phone service will be great. I'll be traveling to Southern Arizona next week. So we're going to be dealing with the same thing. In fact, I may not be able to be on the call depending on where I'm at. So everyone have a great week and appreciate your support.
So Jeff, what's the latest status? Can you kind of give people an update on the state funding and what's happening with that?
Yeah, we're going to have a grant that will be released on November. We're shooting for November 1st. That will be open to everyone here in the state. Terms and conditions are still being negotiated, so definitely more to come on that. I did have actually a really good news announcement for those of you who followed this. Lake Havasu City was able to reach an agreement with Allo Communications. Allo is a fiber to the prem provider based out of Nebraska. We've been working with Allo in multiple markets here, and this is the first one that came through. They're going to be receiving 10 megabits symmetrical to every address in Lake Havasu City. Lake Havasu City will now have the best broadband in the state of Arizona, 10 times better than what I have here in the Phoenix area. So I'm a big believer in picking your partners wisely and working with them. And I know there's some money being invested from the city and others, and super excited about this project. Lake Havasu City is going to put themselves on a very different plane, economically, educationally, healthcare wise, in every sense of the word. And we're super excited to support this project, and we're hoping to have more of these announcements as we move forward this year.
So I think you meant 10 gigabits, right?
I'm sorry, did I say megabits?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so good. No, 10 gigabits symmetrical. I apologize, Henry. So make sure you get that in the notes.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's an exciting day. This is a huge investment. They're going to create several jobs in the city. They're going to have an office with technicians, and you know, more to come in Western Arizona with those guys. Really good company that, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, they're investing, I believe it's $50 million in the area. So this is the private sector at work, and we're very happy to work with these folks. Very well-regarded carrier, both in terms of the price that they offer and the customer service, and they're very innovative in how they do this. So we're big supporters of this deal.
Okay, any more questions for Jeff?
Jeff, on the KPMG study, what's the timeline look for both internal and external visibility on all that?
Good question, Mark. We're looking at probably mid-October when we have the final draft of the report. We've seen some early drafts with public release right around the time of the grant, first week of November.
Jeff,
Great.
you want to remind people what that is?
So we've engaged with KPMG to take a hard look at our 2018 plan, but most specifically around our highways. For those of you who are familiar, we have state-owned and operated fiber on I-17 that's under construction between Phoenix and Flagstaff, and a second project coming up very shortly on I-19 between Tucson and the Mexican border in Nogales. This is taking a look at all of our other highways, both interstate and state, looking at the return on investment, if you will, by the state working in those particular highways. I will tell you, I won't spill the beans here, but there are some really interesting data points that we did not see before. KPMG has some insight into things that we did not. And I'm hoping this program will be expanded as we move forward into 2022.
Okay, great.
Jeff, another quick question from me. This is, who did you say was the service provider for the Lake Havasu project?
Allo, A-L-L-O.
Oh, okay. Are they new to Arizona?
They are new to Arizona. They're one of the companies that we have actively recruited to Arizona.
Okay. Offline, maybe if you can give me the contact, because we'd like to see if they can get into the state master contract so that they become E-rate eligible.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I know they have appeared before the Corporation Commission recently, so they're just going through this process of getting, fully licensed. But that's a great suggestion, Mala.
Yeah.
Today, they provide service in a lot of smaller communities in the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, which is about 250,000 people.
Right. Because once fiber is set up, we will need recurring, amounts to be paid for by E-rate, at least for the schools and libraries. That's one of the reasons why I requested. We do have time to make sure that happens, because after the fiber, it's going to be at least a year.
Oh yeah, it'll be, but these guys are going to build very quickly. They're actually flying in a lot of people from Nebraska and putting them up in hotels, which I guess, if you live in Lincoln, Nebraska, spending the winter in Lake Havasu City isn't a bad gig. So we expect them to get this done very quickly.
Great. It'd be wonderful for the tourism industry as well, because, I've oftentimes, when I've passed through Lake Havasu, tried to send pictures, and it does take so much time for it to go through. So yeah, this is a good thing. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, they've had some real problems. And Steve, I apologize, but I'm going to have to drop after this. I've got another call I've got to be on. But
No problem. So
but-
Jeff, we're seeing a bunch of new companies who are moving in here to Arizona, providing fiber.
yeah, this is hopefully tip of the iceberg. I think a lot of folks are excited about what we're doing on I-17. There's a great company based here in the West Valley called Zona Wired. The parent company is Wired, just based out of Boulder. They're looking at several markets. Ting is a company that's run by the gal who used to run Google Fiber. They're taking a look at some markets around the state. Oh gosh, I mean, there's about half a dozen that if I can remember off the top of my head, but we're very excited to host them and we welcome them to Arizona.
So Jeff, we can talk offline, but would like to, for us to get a directory of all of these different companies and contacts and areas they serve and all that. Is that something you're going to do on your website? Something we should look at, something we should do collaboratively?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Now, granted, we're not under NDA, but many of these things are very sensitive, these negotiations. So having known about this for a little while, I don't talk about them until they're announced, but I think you're going to hear a lot more of these type of announcements over the next 6 months.
Well, we've had several presentations from various new companies who have stepped up, including, I think last week we had a presentation from Illuvian, and so lots of new stuff happening.
Yeah, Illuvian, great work in Pinal County. AT&I has done some really interesting stuff recently. They were already here, but yeah, I think we're going to have some choice in our rural markets, and we're going to have some good choices.
So I'd like to figure out how we get a directory of all these different companies.
Well, again, as they announce projects, Steve, and they're open about what they're doing, I'll be happy to help you compile the directory.
Sounds great.
We don't want to get involved with stuff and get publicity out there until the deals are done.
Understand. Again, we've had a numbers who have already been public. So anyway, I know you got to go.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. So Mala, you got anything else that you want to talk about today?
Oh, yes, there's so much happening. In the E-rate world, we've had Wave 21 approved. About $98 million have been approved for both schools and libraries. This is approximately 4.6% of what has totally been approved, which is great because we expected to be around 2% or less. So this is good. There also on the E-rate front, the eligible services list has been put up, a draft has been put up by FCC for comments. The comments are due between September 27th. Comments are due by September 27th, and reply comments are due by October 12th. They haven't added anything new to it, but we would like, definitely, it would be great to have cybersecurity included. So I'm sure if there is enough noise about it, they're going to start having to think about adding cybersecurity for reimbursements. So far, cybersecurity software or anything required to have cybersecurity on our library or schools network is not reimbursable. So it goes out of pocket for the schools and libraries. So we are hoping that FCC might wake up to the fact that this is a real necessity now and make sure that that is reimbursable. As far as emergency broadband benefits are concerned, we had over 173 households, 73,000 households that have applied so far. Arizona has moved up to the 9th place among the number of households that have applied. There is still funding left and lots of funding left. And in fact, because of that, FCC has, in the middle of the program now, approved schools that were the NSLP data of 2019 and 2021, 2019, 2020, 2020, 21, and 2021, 22. The reason is because a lot of children dropped out of school last year or didn't participate in the school lunch program because schools were closed and therefore were not on the NSLP list. This year, the 2021-22, they are now on. So they can be included in the EBB program. So households that have children that are on NSLP can apply for EBB support. So that is a good thing because that expands the base for those who can apply. Now, the other program that we are looking at is the Emergency Connectivity Fund, the ECF. The ECF has opened a second window, which opens on September 28th and closes on October 3rd. The initial filing window received about $5 billion of the $7.1 billion. So there is still approximately about $2 billion available for the second round. And now is the time to prepare, to talk about it, to see what can be done. And this is only for schools and libraries to apply. Arizona was 6th nationally in the first round of applicants. We had $200 million worth of application. And the ask was about $147 per student, which is pretty reasonable. So FCC has also now, they have announced an open meeting on September 9th, and the open meeting draft agenda has been put up already, but they're going to add to it, of course. This is very exciting because they are inviting comments on how they can promote more resilient networks. The rulemaking for that is being considered. They're also considering shielding 911 calls from robocalls and stopping illegal robocalls from entering the American phone networks, because a lot of these originate from out of the country, and they are looking at how they can shield the 911 calls as well as the American phone networks. The other thing that they are looking at is the spectrum requirements for the Internet of Things. They are looking at making the rules on how that can work, and supporting broadband for tribal libraries through the E-rate programs, trying to define what defines a library and clarify what defines a tribal library better. And the rulemaking for that too is being considered. I already spoke about the telehealth program that we had on September 9th. I'm happy to be a part of the discussion for the EDA focus discussions, and hopefully we come up with a grant that is viable for this round of planning applications. Back to you, Steve. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Mala? Holly, are you online? Do you have anything you want to add? Looks like she's not here today.
Yeah, I don't think Holly's attending today. Yeah.
Okay, any questions for Mala? If not, moving on. I don't think she's here. Janet, are you online? Okay, she's not here. Sophia, you're up. And Mylan, I see you're online also. You guys have any things that you want to talk about?
I'll go first. I don't have a major update. I just wanted to let everyone know that we did share the cost-free EduRoam opportunity with schools last week that Sun Corridor is offering. We sent that email around to schools last week, and we put it on our website. I'm happy to take questions, but I'll shoot it over to Mylan.
Okay. And also, you guys have a plan that you've from your task force, and I do have links to those reports on our website, on our information resources website. So, Mylan, you have anything? You've been very, a lot of the progress that we've made with ECF is a result of your work. So you and Mala, so really appreciate all that you guys do. You want to add anything?
Thanks, Steve. The ECF program has been very taxing. So having an extra filing window and now another extra filing window in the middle of the year has kept us busy. But we did manage to file 200 million. And with those, we have 2 filings for special construction to build out some areas of the state. So I'm hoping those get approved. And with the next filing, I have 2 more that I'm going to be helping some schools file to build out some infrastructure into communities where we don't have infrastructure. And on the same note, with the Final Mile project, Wes, are you online this morning?
Don't think so.
Okay, I talked to Wes earlier this morning, but the Final Mile project board approved the next 4 projects. And so we now have Paloma School District, the area around Paloma approved. Beaver Creek is approved at 52,000. Pima School District area is approved at 121,000. Shoveline Butte area is at 70,000, and Holbrook is at 190,000. So making huge progress there. The Arizona Rural Schools Conference is this week. Friday, we're doing a presentation about the Final Mile to help do some of these once some of the rural schools understand what the Final Mile project is, that we're actually going to be using the school as a jumping off point to go into the neighborhoods, providing internet at $10 a month to the students, that the more of those rural schools are going to be asking for help. And that presentation is on Friday. So I'll be doing it online. I'm not going to be able to attend since I was exposed a few days ago. So I'm not going to be in person, but I'll be online. But hopefully at that conference, we'll get the next group of candidates, and we'll figure out who's the most needy, and we'll go through that process. And I'm probably going to engage Sophia this time to get her assistance in helping the Final Mile board, define who's the most needy in those areas. And I know we have, Winslow, and I'm like, well, Winslow has adequate internet, and they have good internet, good pricing. We want people that have no internet and really have a need for help. So those are the people we want to target. There's a small area in St. John's, I believe that's a good example. St. John's is called Little Colorado Valley. Little Colorado Valley that Joy mentioned. If those administrators there believe that they need help, then that's the kind of people we should be targeting. So Mala also mentioned security with E-rate. We need, for our eligible services list, we really want to get security stuff on our eligible services list so that we can better secure our education networks. Since they're not, business critical in the business world, the organizations don't believe that security is very important, but they are. Student data, finances are very important. So if everyone could throw your comments in there on the ECF and let the FCC know that, security is, especially today, security is a higher threat, and we need to monitor our electronic security better. And if there's no questions, that's it for me, Steve.
Okay. So Mylan, a couple of things. There's some people I think on this call, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think there's some folks that might be interested in talking with you about, among other things, the extending those networks out to the communities. That there, as we've discussed before, there's other funding out there. You're going to hear some of that today from Katie, but there's other funding out there besides just government funding. So I think we should talk about that. And I think you and I have had a brief conversation along with, I've talked with Jerry Crow and with Will McCullen and others about wanting to do something regarding cybersecurity. Until such time as the feds include cybersecurity, we need to do some things. So we've talked about that also.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Lee, are you online? I didn't see you. Are you here?
Hi, Steve. I am
Oh,
here.
you are. Good.
Yeah, and just a quick update from me. For those who aren't aware, the Corporation Commission regulates the utility industry railroad and pipeline safety. And then we have limited jurisdiction in telecom. So I just returned from a national public utilities conference, and telecom was certainly top of mind for regulators across the nation. Just a couple items, I'm looking at my notes on what we talked about, was certainly the ETC designation, which is how folks are seeing so many new telecom companies in the state.
Leah, can you go a little bit slower because I'm trying to capture some of this?
Oh, sure.
Was that Naruk conference that you attended, or
No, it wasn't. It was the Center for Public Utilities.
Center for Public Utilities conference? And then what are you discussing there?
Yeah, and I'm about to go over the list, and I'm happy to talk to you offline if I'm talking too fast too. But first, the items we talked about that impacted regulators across the nation was ETC designation. So we approve each of these companies that are getting rural development fund grants and other things coming to Arizona. So we're seeing a lot of those every month on our agendas here in Arizona.
So what does ETC stand for?
Eligible telecommunication carrier.
Okay.
The second item, if you're typing this up, is pole attachments, really impacting commissions across the nation. So how involved each commission is was something we discussed. We also talked about 911 service. We are certainly focused on reliability and redundancy. So that's something that's also on our agendas. We talked about Lifeline advocacy, as well as the emergency broadband benefit. I think Mala just spoke about this, that more than $40 million eligible, but only about 5 million have applied. So what we can do to promote EBB, and I know each of our organizations has been doing so that's important. And then we spent quite a number of hours on the $5+ trillion in federal broadband funds that are available. Each state is handling this differently. I spoke about Jeff Sabatka and the great work he's doing, but it also stresses how important collaboration, coordination is as people apply for these various grants. And there was a lot of conversation of funding post-pandemic. If we can attract these dollars and use them to build and operationalize, what do we do post-pandemic? And then lastly, we also spoke about President Biden's need to nominate a 5th commissioner to the FCC. And that's a gap right now. So there's a lot of conversation around that in the hallways and so on. But happy to answer any questions. And Henry, if you didn't get that list, I can shoot you a note too.
Yeah, if you could send me a note, I'd appreciate it. You have my email on the registration list. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Leah. Any questions? Derek, are you online?
I am, Steve. I am.
And you've been busy.
Yeah, it seems that way. So I was trying to think of if I have anything to add to what others have already said. Certainly excited about the ADE partnership around EduRoam, fielding input on that front. I spoke a couple of weeks ago about I-17, the construction project breaking ground likely by October 1st or right around October 1st. And the I-19 construction RFPs we think are about to hit the streets. And so, man, I don't think I have anything else to add to what my colleagues have already covered this morning.
Derek, are you planning to participate in the Rural Schools Conference?
When is it?
I believe it's Friday.
This Friday?
Yeah.
I haven't.
This Friday in Flagstaff.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about it, so I'll dig in and consider it. I'll be in the area Thursday, so it wouldn't be a challenge to scoot up there. So
we'll get that information to you.
Okay.
Okay. Excuse me, Mayan, you've pretty much covered what's happening with Final Mile, and Wes isn't online, so we don't need to say anything more about that. The only thing I wanted to mention about the rural schools, about the Final Mile project, for those of you who aren't aware, that they actually have a coalition. So when Mylan mentioned a quote board, that there's I guess a leadership group or a board for that coalition. Is that correct, Mylan?
Yes, they have a board of directors made up of people the Rural Schools Association group have elected to to run the Final Mile Consortium. Anyone can join, and they basically just sign an IGA. They're trying to make sure that it's managed internally. We all understand how Arizona likes to be managed locally. So each one of those projects, the local superintendent, is the one that is the chairperson when they do the bid evaluations. I sit on all the bid evaluations, but the local superintendent is the chairperson, and they evaluate the bids. They define the SIPA requirements. They make all the decisions at the local level. So, they maintain their local control, and that's kind of the way rural Arizona operates, and they like it that way. We tried to do it at a state level, and that didn't go very well. So we moved it back down to the local control level, and everyone is much more comfortable with that. So yeah, the board is made up of local people, local control, local superintendents make their own decisions. The Final Mile Consortium itself is really there just to, create the RFPs, collect them, walk them through the process. And then I actually manage the projects themselves, because most schools don't have the ability to manage a construction project. So they end up hiring a project manager, and we don't need to hire one, since I manage installation projects for technology every day, during my day. So I just throw these into my mix.
Okay.
So it works out pretty well for the schools.
Great, thanks, Mylon. So we need to move on, because we do have a good presentation for the meeting today. So is there anything else? I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier. Tracy or Marcelino, I don't know if you're online, Michelle, about what people are doing with EBB at this point. Anything more than what's already been reported?
Nothing more. Steve, lots of great things are happening, but Mala and Cindy spoke about those.
Great. Well, you guys have done a great job in getting people signed up here in Arizona. So with that, I want to get into our presentation for today. And I'm going to stop sharing and introduce, but I do want to introduce Katie Bodie. Katie, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Bodie.
Bodie. Okay. So Katie and I had a great conversation and talked about opportunities and ways that the task force can collaborate with the Economic Recovery Center. And some of you who attend pretty regularly may remember that Kimber Lanning, who is the executive director or the director of Local First, did a presentation to us several weeks ago. But again, talking with Katie, I think there's some great opportunities for some funding. And one of the things when we first started this task force that we recognized, in addition to government funding, that there are also lots of other government funding sources. And we were very specific in the report that we did that we needed to have a resource here in the state that could identify various funding sources and help folks to have access to and find those resources. So I'm going to stop now and turn it over to Katie. And I got to say, she is so enthusiastic and exciting. So Katie, it's all yours. I'm going to stop sharing. And if you need to share, you're on.
All right, thank you so much. Let me grab this here. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Steve. And I really appreciate you all allowing me a few minutes of time this morning to share a little bit with you about what we're doing and how we think we can work with this group. And I know that the wonderful Kimber presented as Steve mentioned a couple of months ago. So I will try to focus today more on a bit of a reminder of the program, but mostly what we're focusing on doing moving forward. So just a quick recap. The Arizona Economic Recovery Center is a brand new initiative of Local First Arizona. It was started back in April with the intention of getting out in front of all of this new stimulus money that is coming down the pike and doing our part to help get that out into our Arizona communities as quickly as possible. And so that was all started by going out and having conversations in our communities and finding out what the challenges were that people were facing when it comes to getting access to grant funding. And so these are the three main challenges that we observed in our conversations, which then led to the services that we are providing, which I will share with you next. So after having conversations with people, figuring out, okay, what are the needs in the communities when it comes to grant funding, we identified some priorities of the center. So the first thing I should mention is that at the Economic Recovery Center, we are really targeting our assistance to three types of organizations. The first are nonprofits, and they can be 501c3s, C6s, it does not matter. If you're nonprofit, we want to help you. Municipalities in our rural communities are our second target group. And then the third are tribal organizations. And so in order to assist these groups, we identified these key priorities. The first is that we want to be able to help these organizations find the right grant fit for them. We want to help you save time, save energy, and save frustration in the services that we are providing. We want to help fill resource gaps. And so we have gathered together a roster of consultants that we will bring on to assist at no cost to you. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. We want to focus on increasing the number of grant submissions from the state of Arizona, as well as improve the proposal quality. And we want to help build strategic relationships in our rural communities and help improve collaboration. And then, as I mentioned on the first slide, we really want to get as much of this grant funding into Arizona as possible. So we're making sure that we're benchmarking ourselves against our neighbor states to make sure that we receive our fair share of funding. So let's talk about how we can help you. So if you are any organization at all, it doesn't matter how you are organized, you can access our customized grant newsletter completely free of charge. So if you go to our website, which is listed under number 1 on this slide, it's economicrecoveraz.com. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter. So I'll tell you a little bit about what's in that. We have a consultant that we have contracted with who goes through each week, combs through all of the new grant opportunities that become available on several different levels. So she's looking at federal, state, municipal, and foundation grants. And what she's doing is saying, okay, which of these new opportunities are most appropriate to those target organizations that we are focusing in on? So nonprofits, municipalities, and tribal organizations. And then she's taking those grant opportunities that are most appropriate to those groups, loading them into our newsletter, and we're sending that out every Monday. The intention behind this is to give people a one-stop shop place where they can go to find out about the grant opportunities that are most appropriate for their organization. So that's the first thing that anyone is welcome to do, and hopefully it helps cut down the time when searching for grants. Then the second thing that we can do is, if you have identified a grant that you know you would like to apply for, or you know that you need some type of funding, but you're not exactly sure which grant would be the right fit, or you just haven't found a right fit yet. The second thing that we can do is have what we call a strategy meeting with you, and we can then conduct some grant research on your behalf. So what we do is we set up a Zoom call, kind of like we're doing today, and we will talk with you all about your organization's funding needs, the projects you're working on, priorities that you have. And then what we do is we load that into a spreadsheet that we have, And we've organized our schedules so that we have time set aside every day to go in and do some research on behalf of those organizations. So once we've talked to you, we'll add you to the list, and then we will go in and try to search for grants that fit the projects you're working on. And then the hope is that between you looking at the newsletter and us doing our research on our end, between the two of us, we'll be able to come up with a grant opportunity that fits what your organization is working on. And once that happens, we can actually provide grant writing or revision services completely free of charge to organizations that fall within those three categories. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. So what that looks like is any or all of these bullet points here. We can help you, as I mentioned, figure out what it is that you want to do when it comes to grant funding. So you know you need funding, but you haven't identified exactly what it looks like. We can help you walk through that, talk through that, and get it figured out. If you are an organization that has not yet applied for any grant funding, we can also help you with what needs to be done beforehand. So getting a SAM number, getting a DUNS number, all of that sort of prerequisite stuff, so that when the grant opportunity that comes along that's a fit for you, you're ready to go, you're locked in and loaded. The second thing that we can do, as I mentioned, is research grants for you on your behalf. And then when it comes to actually writing the grant, we have a whole host of contractors that we have gathered together with varying levels of expertise in all different types of grant writing. So what happens is when a grant is identified, we will look through our roster of consultants, select the one that best fits that particular grant opportunity, whether it's USDA, EDA, a foundation grant, a state grant, it doesn't matter. We've got somebody who's got expertise in that area and can help. And then based on the level of help that your organization would like, we can have that consultant hold your hand and write the grant with you, or we can just have them be another set of eyes and ears if you have lots of experience and just want someone else to look over it. So either way or somewhere in the middle, we will meet you where you're at and help you get that grant applied for. The intention behind this is really to try to bolster our applications as much as possible. And so when you are one of those three target organizations that we discussed, we can offer all of these services completely free of charge. So what happens is the grant consultant will work with you, and then upon submission of the grant application, they will send us an invoice and we will pay them for their services. So as we mentioned, there are a couple of different kinds of groups that we are offering our services to free of charge. And so those again are nonprofits, municipalities, and tribal organizations. We are focusing in on our rural parts of the state, as well as low to moderate income census tracts as well. If you are not sure whether or not you qualify for our services, please reach out and ask us. We will talk to you. We want to find a way to work with as many people as possible. So don't let that make you hesitate in contacting us. We will figure out a way to work with you. These are our wonderful sponsors that we have been able to gather together that have allowed us to offer our services free of charge. So we definitely want to make sure that we mention them. And then again, this is our website where you can go to sign up for the weekly grant newsletter. And then this is my contact information. So if you would like to schedule a call where we can discuss your organization's needs one-on-one and figure out the best strategy for finding you a grant opportunity, please don't hesitate to email me or give me a call and we will get an appointment on the calendar. And then just to give you a little bit of an update on our progress so far, we actually are working with 98 different entities right now to find grant funding. We have found grants for 38 of those so far, and they are in various stages of being written or submitted. And we have only heard back from 4 opportunities so far, but we've actually won all of them. So we haven't heard back from very many yet, but the ones we've heard back from were 4 for 4. So one of those was working with a municipality on a USDA grant, on a good to go grant, on a town grant, and then the 4th one was for a nonprofit with a humanities grant. So just to give you a little bit of an update on what we've been able to accomplish so far. And then the last thing that I will share with you is that if you are part of another organization or group of organizations that you think would benefit from this information, I am more than happy to come and make a presentation to your group as well and share this info. So just keep that in mind. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and open it up for any questions that anyone has.
So I can, if I want to say a couple of things and then leave it to anybody else who has comments or questions. But first of all, Katie is the key contact person. So if you need some help, she's the person to contact. Secondly, she mentioned the newsletter, and I do have the link on how to connect, but she also provided the link to their website, and I encourage you all to sign up for that newsletter. It's really useful to get notices about things that are going on. And third thing is that we know that a lot of the infrastructure development in the state is going to be government funding. Not necessarily all, but the largest because it's so expensive. But we've been very interested in the digital inclusion. As I mentioned, we probably have 50 some odd organizations who were part of this task force alone. That I think is really one of the key ways that Katie and the center can really help those of you who are digital inclusion organizations to find some additional funding for the work that you're doing. So I'm going to stop with that. Any other questions or comments for Katie? I take it no. Well, Katie, thank you for being here and thank you for enthusiasm for working with our organizations. Again, I think you guys are a great resource and was very much needed, something that we were very much interested in. So thanks for being here today and look forward to your continued participation with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so any other comments, announcements that anybody has before we end the meeting today? Going once, going twice. So I hope that you'll join us and kibitz with us for a while after this meeting. We'll stay online as long as people want to kibitz. And again, I think if you're interested, you got an idea or a challenge that you're working on and would like some feedback, there may be somebody kibitzing with us that may be a resource for you. So with that, I think we're done for today. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye now.
Thanks all.